This is John Loughran Reviewed Your Profile. This episode's guest is EVP, Group Client Director at CMI Compass, Irene Coyne. What is up? Welcome to the post-Thanksgiving episode of John Loughran Reviewed Your Profile. I hope everyone had a happy and healthy Thanksgiving, however you were able to celebrate. Definitely different than years past, but hopefully you got to see or talk to your loved ones in some way, shape, or form. My Thanksgiving was relatively tame, just a small dinner with my in-laws. However, I did get to see my 93-year-old grandmother and go out for drinks with her one day over the break. She's still spunky as ever and enjoyed her 2 gin and tonics. Okay, now let's give a little thanks. Thanks! Thank you to everyone who has watched the first 3 episodes of our little show. Thanks to those who reached out with positive feedback and future guest suggestions. And special thanks to industry veteran Jim Brady for paying attention and emailing me that the tune to open the Karima Sharif episode was correctly Year of the Cat by Al Stewart. It's a weird song, but I like it. Speaking of music, JLVYP, if you will, may or may not be looking for a house band and is kicking around the idea of using this platform as a showcase of musical talents within the industry. So if you've performed at Pharmapalooza or have a group within your company or just yourself playing some music and want to be seen by dozens and dozens of industry colleagues, hit me up. So the past couple of weeks have seen a lot of encouraging vaccine-related news with multiple companies reporting very high effective rates in their trials. Fingers crossed that these become available to the masses soon, as I'm starting to lose my mind a little. Isn't that right, Barb? Barb is our office head / homeschool teacher here in the Newtown office. She's a great listener. Field trip time. My office is now morphing into more of a classroom with the addition of this map of the United States. Pay no attention to my weight bench here. I just like to throw those around every now and then. So anyway, we got this map here, which is a nice addition to the office, and it goes perfectly with this globe that I have. So my kids can absolutely learn about all types of geography. Okay, without any further stupidness, on to our guest for this episode. Irene Coyne, EVP, Group Client Director at CMI Compass, is an experienced and accomplished healthcare marketing professional with a passion for driving brand impact through strategic leadership, innovation, customer focus, and results-driven programs. She has quite the LinkedIn profile, and I'm excited to chat with her. Thank you very much for joining us, Irene.
Hi, John, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, no, I really appreciate it. So let's dive right in. It says on your profile that you're from Springfield, Pennsylvania. That's the Delco one, right?
Yes, actually, born and bred in Delco. It's a suburb of Philadelphia, for those of you who don't know. I went to Upper Darby High School, which is actually the same high school as Tina Fey. She graduated 4 years ahead of me and was the inspiration for Mean Girls. So as I've kind of gotten older, I just kind of keep moving 5 minutes away. So, that's where I live now, and that's where I'm from and where I will be for the foreseeable future.
So you aren't one of the plastics that bullies.
No, I was not.
Okay, good. I do like that. I do like that movie. That's so fetch. So fetch. So I actually that crossed off my follow-up question about where you were originally from. So thank you. Thank you for that. So Springfield, when there's no COVID going on and people can actually go out and do stuff, what's the happening spot that you like to hit up?
Well, we have some, cool bars here. So, we either go sometimes into media to, Iron Hill, or we've got our very own, Duke's, which has now been rebranded. I haven't been in the new Duke's now, but that's a big hangout here, in Springfield, Pennsylvania.
Very cool. They just opened, literally, they were going to open it in like March. So it kind of threw a little wrinkle in it, but they just opened an Iron Hill brewery out where I'm at in Newtown, PA. And, so on a limited capacity, I've been able to sit outside and sample some stuff. I think they had they had one beer. It might have been called the Philly Special, which I had a special. I had to order it just because, not because it was the strongest one on the menu, but just because it spoke to me. So as a big Eagles fan.
Yeah, well, 2SP has a good Delco lager, so I'm all back behind that support for that.
Very cool, very cool. So actually, I got a question that just came to mind as I look at your fun scenery behind you. Obviously, we have the holidays coming up. That is not Blitzen on your wall, is it?
His name is Elliot, and everyone at both my company that I've had Zoom calls with, as well as at my husband's company, knows Elliot. He makes an appearance, but so we got him a few years ago. So my son got him on clearance. My older son got him on clearance at Target. He was heading off to college, and he decided he wanted something that was, a conversation piece for his dorm room. So about 3 months prior to college, he's like, I'm not going to take Elliot. I'm afraid he's going to be too weird. I'm going to be the kid with the antelope in the room. So I'm not going to take him. So he has now taken up residence, proudly here in our office. And, we dress him up for the holidays, and everyone likes to kind of check in on my Zoom and see what Elliot's wearing today. So that's the story behind my antelope.
Well, you have a
my Target clearance antelope.
Nice. So you have a nice, respectable son, because the last thing I was trying to bring people back to my dorm room for was conversation, if you know what I mean. Speaking of college, it says here that you're a Pitt Panther. Did you go to the main campus, or did you go to one of their branch campuses?
So I actually went to a small branch campus of Pitt in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So I had, when I was going off to college, I was going to be a creative writing major. That's where I sort of started, and it was a small, very picturesque, mountain-esque campus that, I thought myself of walking in the woods and writing poetry and all of that. So I do consider myself a Pitt Panther, but technically we're the UPJ Mountain Cats. But the sort of fun fact, I actually had, half the people in my college graduating class than I did in my high school graduating class. So
wow.
I graduated with over 600 people in my high school and probably about 300 in my college graduating class.
Wow. That's funny. So it sounds not much smaller than where I went, which was the University of Scranton. Which,
okay, yeah.
So from what I know about Johnstown, I'm guessing this was a party school, right? Not much else to do.
There really wasn't an off-campus. I mean,
yeah.
It was pretty much in the top of the mountains. And if anyone's seen the movie All the Right Moves, that's a football movie that was filmed at the high school that's right next to the college campus. So there's a lot of good scenes there, from around that.
Is that the one with Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Wow.
I'm dating myself.
I'm dating myself.
Most people probably have never even heard of it.
But. No, I for some reason I was thinking of Dennis Quaid, but I think that's Everybody's All-American. But
I don't
All
know.
the Right Moves with Tom Cruise. Yeah, guy can do it all. He plays a football star and does everything. So very cool. Very cool. So kind of to talk a little bit about your career. Well, actually, so you said what was it that you wanted to major in? Writing poetry? What did you?
Creative writing.
Creative writing. Is that what you ended up majoring
in?
So
I started in creative writing. I switched to psychology, and then I ended up in communications. And the fact that I've come into advertising, I actually use all of those things,
nice.
Which is super interesting. So, there were only 30 communications majors at my college. I started the communications club. This is how small.
Wow.
There wasn't an advertising or a PR major or anything like that. So I didn't even know that I wanted to get into advertising. That wasn't my sort of my ballywick of, this is what I want to do. I just wanted to be able to do something that, I was working with people and, I could use some of that marketing and the communications and all of those things together.
You mentioned Ballywick. What does the butler from Sophia the First have to do with any of this? That's a joke.
My kids are much older. You're going to have to go back a little bit
gotcha.
To Playhouse Disney.
Gotcha. Sorry. I heard that and I was like, I can't pass up the opportunity to say something really, really stupid. That's cool. I was a communications major as well, and we had a very broad diverse communications program where I had classes in a couple different things. So yeah, it gave me the opportunity to get into, you know, really a variety of things, and I ended up in advertising as well. And you know, that's all she wrote. Okay, so after graduation, it looks like you started your career. It looked like it took a couple of years before you got to the pharma side of things. Any fun stories from pre-pharma
Yeah.
advertising?
Yeah, so that just happened to be the first job offer I received at an advertising agency that kind of seemed interesting to me. I kind of applied for a lot of different types of roles. So my first job was at a small full-service ad agency in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. It was really an incredible learning experience. We mostly did print and direct mail, you know, and as a member of the account team, I really had the opportunity to collaborate closely with the creative process, which I really loved. You know, and I would say this is going to really age me, but not only was it pre-pharma, but this was pre-digital. So like I can actually remember only getting internet access in my last 3 months there. So I had worked there for 3 years. So only in the last 3 months did I have any access to the internet. You know, and as often and unfortunate as the agency world is sometimes, is I learned very early on in my career about, you know, takeovers and layoffs, and unfortunately was laid off. I was 6 months pregnant and 2 weeks away from making settlement in my first house. And the recruiter said to me, honey, I'm not sure what I can do for you now. Call me back after you've had the baby. So, you know, rightfully I was discouraged, and, you know, I had started to apply for other jobs, and luckily I found a growing digital ad agency. It was a bit of a startup, you know, called iFrontier. I was employee 13. It was housed in a suspect warehouse in South Philly, and run by an incredible man by the name of Brad Aronson. And he hired me knowing I was pregnant, and, you know, said to me, I've really found that working mothers are some of the best multitaskers like I have ever worked with. You know, so that was amazing. But I remember asking Brad in my interview while his poodle Thor, you know, had his head on my lap the whole interview. I said, and I tell this story to everyone, like, where do you think this internet thing is going? And is it here to stay? So I have so many stories from like that time of my career about how archaic like digital was to manage back then.
Yeah.
But you know, iFrontier, you know, ultimately became, you know, Avenue A Razorfish and Razorfish Health, and you know, and was one of the, you know, and is still one of the premier, you know, pharma agencies, you know, in the world. So, you know, I kind of lucked myself into, you know, into pharma and into digital. And, you know, while it was an unfortunate circumstance to be laid off and the situation surrounding that, you know, it, you know, I don't want to say it did wonders for my career. I mean, I really truly believe everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. It's funny. I have a ton of stories as well that age me as well. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's like a 6 degrees of separation, but like we have some similarities in that you work at CMI now. I actually started my career at CMI, and it was back when it was still relatively small. And I remember, God, all the plans that we did, it was all print. There was no digital.
Right.
We had, I think, one laptop in the office that we could share. So if somebody had to take work home, we had to fight over who was doing it. It was back in the days where, oh crap, there was snow days back then where it's like, oh yeah, can't get into the office, can't work. And now it's there's no such thing. And it's also tying that all together was my next question was, you know, obviously it looks like being in media is where you've had, you know, a big part of your career. But you actually had a couple years stint at the pharma company that was my big client when I worked at CMI, which was AstraZeneca. And I think the reason I'm not there is because I was not the world's greatest media planner. But so how was it different? How'd you like being the client versus being, you know, on the media side?
Yeah, it was interesting. Well, I had worked on AstraZeneca business at all of the agencies I've worked at. So it was sort of a natural sort of next step if I wanted to try client side is to go over to AstraZeneca. Not only is it, geographically very close to me here in Philadelphia, but, I knew a lot of people. I knew all of the products. One of the first products that I worked on for AstraZeneca was Prilosec when it was actually still an RX product. Claritin for shearing plow was one of my other, first accounts that I worked on, both when they were still only available for over prescription. But, one of the things, I learned a lot being on the client side. I learned about what is good client service and what's great client service. I learned a lot about how much is on their plate versus just like what the agencies are responsible for. I jokingly said, and I went to some of my former clients, like when I left there and said, wow, like I'm going to apologize to you. Like as an agency person, I never gave you enough credit about how hard your job is, how much you have to manage, how much travel that you guys do. But it was a real learning experience. I learned a lot, even having been in pharma for a long time. I mean, and being either in media or in marketing, I did learn a lot. I had opportunity to spend time with the sales force. I had opportunity to, go out in the field and, speak to the physicians or, see what actual, patients, were saying in market research. I had a much more, I think, in the agency world, we tend to skew a little bit younger, and it was great to have people who had many more years of experience than me and a very wide background to use as sort of, mentors and, people helping me in my career. I think that was really great for me. And then I think the other thing is I learned that, listen, our clients are as goofy and human as we are from an agency perspective. So I think oftentimes we think that they're very, very stuffy and rigid and, and all of that. And I did not find that to be the case on the client side. I actually found, in some cases they were more goofy, and human than folks on the agency side. So I would say like those were, some of the big, the big ahas for me being on the client side and really understanding like, how a drug gets from trial to market and some of those things that I think have helped me not only be a better client service person, but also better understand like how all of the pieces fit together with what we're doing from a media perspective.
Nice. So what ultimately brought you back to agency side from AstraZeneca?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So someone said to me, so at the end of the day, I wanted to stay in marketing and advertising. And, coming into the role that I came in with, 20 years of advertising experience, I mean, oddly enough, it was, you have too much marketing experience to stay in marketing. And there was, I guess some either as pressure to move up in the organization was really to, get a broader experience, across like the pharmaceutical company, because marketing and advertising in media specifically, it's only one small part of what a pharmaceutical company does. So the reason I ended up, coming back to the agency side is I just really wanted to stay in marketing and advertising. And I didn't, want to spend, I would say like the next 20 years of my career, working across the different departments in a pharmaceutical company just to get back into marketing.
Sure.
And I think I actually had done that on the, on the agency side. I had worked in project management and client service and strategy and in media. So I feel like I did a lot of that on the agency side. So if maybe I had started my career at a pharmaceutical company, I probably would have stayed. But I think I just was sort of bitten very early with the marketing, advertising, and media bug that, that's kind of what I wanted to do day in and day out. That's kind of what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. And I think that's really good insight for younger media people who think like, oh, ultimately I'd love to work at the, in pharma at the pharma client, to your point of, they might shuttle you into different capacities. I think that's really cool intel to, hear what ultimately brought you back to
Yeah.
media and what you like doing at the end of the day. Ultimately, that all brought you to where you are now, which is CMI, which, like I said, I used to work at, and you came highly recommended by the PR team as somebody that is, that quote, had a varied career across different agencies and has lots of great stories. She's fun and interesting. So we'll talk about that in a second. So you've been at CMI how long now? About a year?
About a year in about 5 days.
Okay. I'm usually pretty spot on with my rounding. So how do you like it? How do you like CMI?
I love it. Having worked at many different agencies, and I've worked again in both in sort of client service and marketing and media, et cetera. I don't want to say I expected a little bit more of like same thing, different agency, but it really isn't. The family feel, how diverse the company is, the camaraderie of the staff has really been, amazing. And I think the access that I've had to not only things like proprietary tools, but like, teams like market research, there's the robust social team, the product development team, the HR and training and marketing, and even business development. They're far more developed than any of the other agencies that I've worked with. I mean, I feel like CMI has allowed those people to focus on those things as opposed to, what we used to call like a side hustle. You have your kind of day-to-day, job that you do, and then maybe you're helping with training as your side hustle. So they've really put resources behind these things. And I think that, it's really allowed me to focus more on like my team, my clients, innovation. I think the other thing that I really respect is that they're very action oriented. So like, see a problem, solve a problem. So, when there is something not working, we talk about it, we talk about, how to fix it. And there are people and resources there that help fix it. It's not like, I don't want to say like we get in a room together and complain about the same things year over year over year. So I really do feel like the company, is evolving, and evolving very, very quickly.
That's a great answer. I guess I shouldn't have expected you to say, well, actually, I hate it here. That would have been ill-advised. Okay, so I hear you have a lot of great stories. We don't have a ton of time, but what's one of your best from your career?
Yeah, I think how I got into pharma and digital and some of that experience is probably one of the ones that's dearest to my heart that I've already talked about. I really love what I do. I love everyone that I have worked with. I care so much for the people, that I work with. And I really think like when I look at like the legacy of my career and what I want that to look like, it's really the opportunity to manage and mentor people and to, see the impact that I've made on them, and feel proud of the progress that they've had, in their career and that I've made positive, part of their career journey. I don't want to say as far as my greatest story, like, I know it sounds hokey, but I think my greatest story is the one that's yet to come. But I really, delight in being able to, mentor and manage other people and impart, kind of the wisdom and, I don't want to say like all of the mistakes that I have made in my life and my career to other people and in trying to, help them, be better at their career. So, my legacy is seeing a lot of other people succeed. And I know kind of like my greatest story is kind of, it is coming up.
It's coming up. Yes. That is hokey. You're right.
I know. I'm sorry. Most people that know me know that I'm like super sappy, hokey person. I haven't cried on the call, so that's good.
No, it's a great answer. It's a great outlook, and I like that attitude. Just some personal stuff. What do you like to do for fun out in Springfield, other than go to Duke's or some of the other bars you named?
So I'm really into bird watching. I'm somewhat of a bird nerd. So I have over 15 feeders in my backyard.
Cool.
I love to garden. So a lot of people send me pictures saying, do you know what this is? And I'm able to pretty much identify it. I would jump at the chance, any chance I get to do karaoke. And I think the other thing is like, I'm super into ancestry. So I've been able to like trace my paternal lineage, like back to the 1620s in Virginia. So like almost like Williamsburg
Wow.
time. So that's been really, really exciting.
Very cool. I'll have to talk to you offline because one of the things that I did during the pandemic to keep myself sane was I actually made a birdhouse by hand. I sawed all the wood by hand, and it was just a hobby, something to do. I actually made it. It looks like a old throwback Eagles helmet
Oh,
with
nice.
birds. Yeah. I just can't get a damn bird to go anywhere near it. I don't know like how to attract them or what. I'm trying to put it out plain as day in the open so they see it. It doesn't look like your traditional birdhouse, so they might be a little suspect. But I'll have to talk to you offline about how I can get some birds to actually come and eat from my
All right.
birdhouse.
I will give you some great tips.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, that's good. And maybe we can share them on a future episode if the viewing audience is also fans of birds. So last thing, I mean, anything is there anything that you want to plug or that you're doing or that CMI is doing? Anything worth mentioning?
Yeah, I will say like as you know, as people get into hiring the next class of junior level employees, like, my plea is to have sympathy and consideration for those, graduating in the time of COVID,
Yeah.
where they've had limited experience considering summer job, their extracurriculars, internships were canceled or put on hold. I personally have a son graduating from the University of Maryland with a degree in communications in May.
Wow.
I think he was supposed to, he's very much into sports, very much into social media. He had a great internship with the Wilmington Blue Rocks, but unfortunately that was canceled. So
Mhm.
he's been really impacted over that. And I'm really hoping as he graduates and as other people in those same situations graduate that, we are sort of taking that this time period of COVID into consideration as we're looking to bring on some junior folks who might not have, the robust internship resumes that, we're used to seeing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's my plug, my
That's
shameless
awesome.
plug for my child.
That's awesome because I went through, I was one of the let me just graduate and then I'll, focus. And it took me a little while to land my first real legit gig. I did some interesting things while I was finding that first real career. But that's a
And the
great answer.
resumes today are so incredibly impressive, and um,
I
none of us would have jobs
Oh my God.
if we were applying today.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that's awesome. That's a very compassionate plea there. And I think, CMI, is seems like they're always hiring. And, I see Eugene Lee posting, we just had to run another record hiring class. And every month when I look at the Healthcare Marketers Exchange news and notes section, there's 40 more people. So things are definitely going well for CMI. And
Yep.
so that's awesome. Well, this was a great conversation. Like I said, I feel like we could talk all day. If my episodes go too long, I'll lose all my viewers. But this was great, and I just want to thank you very much for joining us. And it's been a pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much, John.
Okay, so that's our episode. I want to thank Irene Coyne for a great conversation. Until next time, if you would like to be a guest, a musical guest, got any musical talent, hit me up. But otherwise, until the next episode, I think Hanukkah starts before then. So happy Hanukkah to everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.